button and share my
All right.
screen.
Hi, Gilly. Welcome.
Okay. Can everybody see that? Okay. Do you want to just give me a thumbs up to let me know you can see this shared screen? Perfect. Okay. So as Trudy said, I'm Sue Thomas. I'm a wellbeing professional, been in the wellbeing industry for 18 years. Previously as a personal trainer, but more recently as a nutritional therapist in the last 6 years. And I know Trudy through working with the menopause side of her business. And we had a conversation some weeks ago now, as we headed into lockdown, about how Trudy could start to improve her health. And so it sort of developed from there, really. So what I'm going to do over the next 30 minutes is just take you through what is going on for our health in 21st century life. The reason why we see so many more people struggling with so many, what I like to call low-grade conditions that don't prevent you from living life, but might be the thing that compromises your quality of life, basically. So I call this my 21st century approach to long-term better health. You can apply it to anything. You can call it 21st century approach to long-term better weight management. You could call it a long-term better hormone balance. Whatever you wanted to look at, all of these principles that I'm going to go through over the next 30 minutes apply to basically helping you live a fuller and more vibrant life, basically long-term. But before I do that, well, first of all, just like to hand it back to Trudy, because I think Trudy, it's really important to understand where Trudy started from when she first got in touch with me. So do you want to go through where you started from, Trudy?
Yeah, pretty much here. Thank you. I know, everybody that's on the call today, I'm close to, so you will have known the previous Trudy. But just looking at this list now, it's quite unbelievable to me. So just, generally sluggish. I felt every day as if I was wading through treacle. My skin was very bad. I was having adult acne, my menopause symptoms, hot flushes, and quite a moody mare from time to time. I'm sure some of you will agree. And literally tired all the time. The first thing I would think about when I woke up in the morning is, when can I go back to sleep? And most people know that I was very fond of an afternoon nap. In fact, I could barely get through the day without an afternoon nap. My energy was so low. And I've put here sleeping too much as well, because it all ties in. It didn't matter how much sleep I was getting, and sometimes I would sleep 8, 9, 10 hours of a night and still manage a snooze of 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon sometimes. My digestion wasn't great. The acid reflux was quite bad, and I think everybody's seen the story that I put on Facebook about how my doctor had said, once you've taken drugs for acid reflux, you're going to be taking them for the rest of your life, and I wasn't really up for that. I was overweight. I am still a little bit, and my joints were quite achy. I used to feel like a sort of 90-year-old woman every time I got up out of a chair, that noise that you used to make. So yeah, looking at this is quite a dismal picture, isn't it, Sue?
And I think you got to that point where you decided that actually you needed to take a little bit more control, didn't you? And that was where our conversation first started, really, didn't it?
Well, that's correct. And also having embarked on a couple of new ventures in life with a new business, I wanted to start that with lots of energy and enthusiasm. It's not easy getting something off the ground, and I wanted to be as on it as I possibly could.
Okay, perfect. So that was where you started from, and that is where many of my clients that I have conversations with will start from as well. So what I want to do basically is just set the picture for you in terms of where most people are in 21st century life today. So there is no doubt that we are struggling with a global health crisis. Basically 30,000 people die from an obesity related illness every year. 700 people a day are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and the NHS spends about 27 billion on medications for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or obesity in some form. And so we are struggling with this major health epidemic in the Western world. And what I like to call that epidemic really is type 2 malnutrition. We eat far too many calories, but we don't eat enough nutrients. The body is really a sophisticated organ, or a sophisticated machine, if you like, and it can basically, if it's given the right nutrients, it can heal itself very, very efficiently. And so what we're seeing more and more of, and what a lot of my clients come to me with, is these low grade conditions, like Trudy was just explaining, acid reflux, a bit of IBS that's compromising perhaps towards the end of the day their quality of life, affecting, you know, going out to eat in the evening and stuff because it's really quite uncomfortable and painful. Never having deep, refreshing sleep. So, you know, struggling with maybe 4 hours of sleep a night, waking through the night. That has a consequence to energy levels the next day, hormone imbalances. More than ever before, we see more menopause hormone imbalances, but also we see hormone imbalances amongst men as well. And that is because of what I'm going to explain to you over the next 20 minutes or so, is why we're starting to see more and more of those conditions in 21st century life. So we have this global health crisis, and we need to understand in a little bit more detail what is causing this crisis. And we are all exposed to it, basically. And unless we take control and take responsibility for ourselves, we can become more and more, our health basically gradually declines over a period of time. And often what happens is we're on this kind of trajectory where it's a gradual downward curve and we don't notice it and we get used to it, and then suddenly it drops off a cliff. And that often is when we say, I've got to take control and I've got to do something about this. But actually, if you managed it on a day-to-day basis, you would never get to that point where you dropped off the cliff, and actually you'd be on the upward trajectory as opposed to the downward one. So what is affecting our health on a day-to-day basis, and how can we do something about it? I'm going to take you on that journey over the next 30 minutes. So the first and most important thing to understand is the choices we make from a nutritional perspective. Even if we think we are making healthy choices, often those healthy choices are compromised by the food companies and the way food is now manufactured. So we have a diet that has been manufactured for taste and not for health, first and foremost. We have a lot of products that now have hidden chemicals in them, hidden preservatives, that when we take on board will have an impact on the whole balance of our internal system. A lot of those products are high in sugar, hidden sugar that we don't realize are there, or bad fats just to keep them shelf stable and easy to produce, basically. But most importantly, some of you will be on this call saying, well, I don't eat processed food. I never buy processed food. I never buy things in packets or anything like that. I buy everything fresh from the supermarket, which I applaud you, and that's, you know, really, really fantastic. But you need to understand the process that those foods have gone through to get to that supermarket shelf. So a lot of foods these days are kept in cold storage for long periods of time. So let's take an example of an apple. An apple will be picked in the growing season of September time, but we will still have those apples on the shelf in June, July of the following year. So those apples have been kept in cold storage, and they've been kept in cold storage in order to be able to maintain their integrity in terms of their appearance. But as soon as you pick that apple off the tree, its nutrient content depletes by, in an apple's case, a half every month. So for every month that apple is in cold storage, its nutrient content is depleting. So when you eat that apple, you will be, if you're eating it in July, you'll have very little nutritional value in that apple because of the fact that it's been kept in cold storage. And also, we are far more a nation now that is forced growing things out of season. And this has a lot to do with large supermarkets demanding how food is grown. So wanting strawberries on the shelf throughout a longer growing season, wanting blueberries and things that travel distances, tomatoes that have been vine ripened on the shelf all year round. And so consequently, we are not basically those fruits and vegetables that are grown out of season. They're grown out of season and they don't have the full complement of nutritional content because they're more water based than they are nutrition. Can everyone hear me okay? My internet sometimes drops in and out. Is it all okay? Yeah, perfect. So even though we think we're making good nutritional choices, sometimes those nutritional choices can not necessarily nourish our body with what our body needs for 21st century life. When we're under more, we live a very frenetic life in 21st century, and it's far more stress than ever before, and stress requires more nutrients than ever before. But if we're not getting the full complement of nutrients in our diet, that can have an impact on how our health balances out. Basically, like I said at the beginning, body's a very, very sophisticated machine, and if it's given the right nutrients, it can heal itself, it can keep itself in balance. It's something called the wear versus repair balance. If that balance goes out of alignment, so we have more wear than we have nutrients, it can't repair itself, so we never get back to this point where the body is in sort of homeostasis, and actually we've got more nutrients to help the body heal than we actually need. So our nutritional choices are key. That's the first thing. The second thing we need to understand is some of the lifestyle choices we make as well. So I won't go into lots and lots of detail, and I'm not going to hold anybody accountable and I'm not going to say you can't ever have alcohol again, for example, but it doesn't have any nutritional value to us. It's very high in sugar, and it actually puts a huge pressure on the liver. And as we go along, you'll understand more and more how I work is focusing on intestinal health and liver health. When our liver's not working efficiently, that has an impact on our sleep. So it doesn't allow us to go into a deep quality sleep. So if you're someone that wakes between 1 and 3 in the morning, that is a sign that your liver is not working properly. And often we get into a bit of a spiral. We're exhausted, we have a very busy day, we come in and we have a glass of wine because we need to relax. But actually what that glass of wine does is it puts huge pressure on the liver. The liver has to detoxify the chemicals that it's been exposed to in the liver, in the alcohol, sorry, and that compromises our quality of sleep. And so we never get that deep, refreshing sleep. So the next day we're exhausted, we have another stressful day, we use alcohol to kind of bring us back down at the end of the day. So that's a sort of self-perpetuating cycle of using alcohol to not necessarily self-medicate, but just to relax at the end of the day. But that has a knock-on effect to the quality of our sleep. When we don't sleep enough, and sleep is hugely, hugely vital, become just something that is more vital than we've ever realized before. We don't get enough sleep. So like Trudy said, it feels like you're dragging your feet through treacle on a day-to-day basis. There's lots of studies being done around sleep now, and just how they're recognizing how important it is to have 7 hours good quality sleep a night. So when you sleep, you should go into 2 deep sleep cycles. The first sleep cycle is the first cycle where it cleans the brain and gets rid of all the dead sort of cells and stuff in the brain that's happened through the course of the day. And then the second sleep cycle is when we have this kind of big flush through of the rest of the body. So if you're someone who is a sports person, for example, and you're not getting decent sleep, if you have an injury, your body struggles to repair it. It takes longer for that injury to recover. But equally as much, if you're not getting that first deep sleep cycle, that can expose you to things like Alzheimer's and dementia more than ever before. So getting quality sleep is really, really important. But it's also really important for weight management and for reducing inflammation. So that second sleep is where we clear all that, all the sort of waste cells and stuff out of the rest of the body and reduce inflammation and bring inflammation under control. So if you've got joint pain, for example, your body is struggling with inflammation, and good quality sleep will help to bring that under control. That's when a lot of repair takes place through the course of the night. But equally as much, sleep is very important for weight management. They did a study that was done in Los Angeles a couple of years ago, 2 groups. One group was allowed 8 hours sleep a night. The other group was only allowed 4 hours sleep a night. They fed the 2 groups exactly the same calories, and without fail, the group that had 8 hours sleep a night lost 50% more weight on this calorie controlled diet than the group that only had 4 hours sleep a night. So sleep has been long, it's that whole, oh, I don't need sleep, you know, you can sleep when you're dead and stuff like that. Well, actually, if you don't sleep, that's what's going to happen. For every hour you lose your sleep a night, if over a consistent period of time, you age yourself by about 15 years. So thinking about sleep and how you can improve the quality of your sleep is really, really important. And the first place to start with that is caffeine, and reducing caffeine intake during the day and not having alcohol before bed, because it puts the pressure on the liver. When the liver's working hard, it brings you into a lighter phase of sleep, and then it's really hard to get back into a deep quality sleep. So sleep is really important from a health management point of view. Stress, both internal and external. So external stress, we're all aware of external stress. It might be talking on the telephone, it might be sitting in traffic, it might be trying to get, manage about 1,000 different things. If you're homeschooling or what have you, I don't know, some of you maybe, some of you maybe not. All of that is a huge stress on the system, and trying to keep down, trying to work full time as well. But you've also got internal stress. So internal stress is that inflammation that I mentioned, and I'm going to go into inflammation in a bit more detail. That internal stress, when the body becomes inflamed internally because we're not giving it enough nutrients, we have the same stress response to internal stress as we do external stress. And what can happen is that it means managing external stress becomes a lot harder if internally the body is stressed with lots of inflammation. And I'll talk about inflammation in a bit more detail in a minute. Medications that we take on a day-to-day basis, whether it's antidepressants, whether it's omeprazole or other acid reflux medications, antibiotics that we've taken for years, popping pills, even right back to kind of antibiotics that you might have taken as a child, can have an impact on the quality of your intestinal health. And there is a 2,500-year-old saying, all disease begins in the intestine. So antibiotics basically kill the bacteria that's in your intestine. And well, they kill bacteria, whether it's good or bad bacteria. Antibiotics kill bacteria. And antibiotics that you might have taken as a child can have a huge impact on the diversity of the bacteria in the intestine as you grow into an adult. So kids that have had ear infections, for example, or tonsillitis or chest infections and stuff as a child repeatedly, those antibiotics kill the variety of bacteria in the intestine. And even though there's still some good bacteria in the intestine, it's not a diverse enough range. And what that means is that later in life, we can start to see complications around health, whether it's just tiredness and poor sleep, because all of your hormones needed for better sleep are produced in the intestine, or whether it is acne, skin acne, all of those kind of things are linked back to the health of the intestine. So supporting the intestine becomes really important. You've got two areas there, liver health and managing the health of the liver, and supporting the intestinal health and the gut bacteria. So, we see more and more IBS more than ever before in a lot of adult population, and that often can be linked back to antibiotics that was taken as a child or in teenage years. The whole concept of taking antibiotics long term for acne, for teenage acne, when I see kids that are taking antibiotics for teenage acne, it scares me to death, because all that they are doing is actually making the problem worse long term, because those antibiotics are killing the bacteria in the intestine that will prevent from the acne from happening. So all the antibiotics are doing basically is sticking a plaster on that acne, but it's just going to make it worse long time. It's just going to continue to get worse and worse. So understanding what medications do to us and how we can manage those medications as well. And actually something as simple as paracetamol for a headache or for a migraine, because the way the liver functions and creates something called glutathione, which is an antioxidant that's really important for detoxification. But when we take paracetamol to manage a headache, it stops the production of glutathione. But glutathione is really important for detoxification, and headaches often come from toxicity in the system. So when we take a medication, in case of something as simple as a headache, actually what we're doing long term is making that problem worse, because we're not allowing those toxins that the body's been exposed to be cleared out of the system. And so that headache will just keep repeating itself because the liver can't do the job that it needs to do. And we're becoming more and more sedentary than ever before. I don't need to go into this one. Basically 25% of the UK population is inactive. And there's lots and lots of evidence to show now that our whole cardiovascular system, our intestinal health, our liver health, all depends on us having a more active lifestyle on a day-to-day basis. And that doesn't need you to go out and run a marathon, but it does need you to be moving and getting the body moving on a day-to-day basis. But as Trudy said, when you get into that rut of feeling tired all the time, all you want to do is sleep, but you never actually feel refreshed, and because you're never actually allowing the body to repair itself, and so you don't want to move, and so the problem just aggravates further and further. And then lastly, toxicity that we are exposed to on a day-to-day basis. And this is quite frightening. They, so just to give you something that you can really get your head round, there is a chemical that is in Roundup, the standard weed killer that everybody puts, well, doesn't everybody, but lots of people will put on their gardens, and that farmers use to manage weeds in a field of wheat, basically. And they did a test on brown bread that was on the supermarket shelf, and without fail, 60% of the bread that was bought on a supermarket shelf had traces of glyphosate, which is a chemical in Roundup, which is also quite a very powerful carcinogen. So we are exposed on a day-to-day basis to toxins that we cannot do anything about, basically. It's sort of almost out of our control. It's estimated that most women put about 500 different toxins on their skin, or exposed to 500 different toxins before 9 o'clock in the morning because of the skincare that they use on their body, on their face, hairspray, lipstick, makeup, all of that kind of thing. There are toxins in those products, and that's again not saying that you can't ever wear those things again. It's about understanding how you can manage it long term, and that is crucial. It's about understanding what you can do to mitigate the circumstances and to manage your own health long term. Household cleaners, tap water with HRT and contraceptive pilling, pesticides on foods, you name it, we are exposed to many, many toxins on a day-to-day basis. And what happens with those toxins, they become what we call estrogenic in the system. So they are a chemical estrogen that our body takes on board. Estrogen is a fat storing hormone to start with, so it will tell the body that it needs to put on weight, but equally as much, those toxins are, if the liver can't detoxify them because it's not working properly, it will send those toxins to the fat cells for storage. And there's a term now called obesogens, which basically means you have fat cells that are storing toxins. They're a toxic waste dump. And those toxins basically rewrite how the fat cells function. So they increase the number of fat cells that you have, and equally as much, they control the hormone balance of those fat cells. So it will send messages to the body telling us that we are more hungry than we actually are. And it will also send messages to the body telling us that we're never full. So we end up eating more. So those toxins around the system can have a huge, when they're stored in our fat cells, can have a huge impact on the kind of ecosystem of how our body works. Just bear with me a second. I'm just going to make sure that I've just let Valerie in. I just want to make sure she's muted. There we go. So when we are exposed to toxins on a day-to-day basis, sorry, just didn't mean to add on, it's fine, it's okay. Our body struggles to manage those toxins, and what happens with those toxins is it has two consequences. One is it puts pressure on the liver because the liver has to detoxify harder than ever before, and the liver is a vital organ that carries about 500 different functions across the body, and without the liver working properly, it can have consequences, as I said, to detoxification, to hormone balance, to energy levels, to sleep, to how well we sleep, etc., etc. But equally as much, we need the intestine working properly, and we need the microbiome working properly. So the microbiome is that makeup of bacteria in our intestine. We should have about 80-20 good bacteria to bad bacteria in our intestine. Most people in 21st century life probably don't have, sometimes 50-50, maybe 60-40, but in most cases it's lower on the bad bacteria perspective than it is on the good bacteria. And it's becoming more and more understood now in the mainstream media as well, how important the microbiome is. So that 2,500-year-old saying all disease begins in the intestine, it really does, because if the microbiome's not working properly, it has a consequence across the rest of the body. So what is the microbiome? What do we do about it? How do we support it? So we're actually only about 10% human. We are made up of more cells that are bacteria, fungi, than we are of our own DNA, basically. So we have 100 trillion cells, 90 trillion of them are not alien to us because they're symbiotic. We need them, basically. They live on us and in us. They live on our skin, they live up our nose, they live in our mouth. Mouth is a really important microbiome place for the bacteria to live. They live predominantly in our intestine, and they also live in the birth canal as well, which is really interesting because if a child is born by C-section, that first, the birth canal basically is the place where a baby takes mouthfuls of fluid, and those mouthfuls of fluid are full of bacteria. And so when a baby is born, the first 3 weeks of its life are really crucial for microbiome development. And if a baby is C-section born, it doesn't take mouthfuls of that fluid. And so therefore, long term, that can have a consequence in terms of their own microbiome development. And it's really interesting. My youngest daughter, whilst all 3 of my children were born naturally, my youngest daughter, when she was 3 weeks old, I had a womb infection and I had to take my antibiotics to get rid of the infection. And she has struggled in the early years of her life. She struggled with many ear infections and chest infections. And it wasn't until I understood the consequence of what I had done taking antibiotics when I was breastfeeding her that I realized that actually her microbiome health was really compromised. And so I had her on a program of taking probiotics basically to improve her gut bacteria, to mean that we could get on top of all the ear infections that she kept getting. And that's not uncommon to see, like I said, teenagers that are struggling with acne. Often that can be linked back to a child that was born by C-section or was born early and ended up having antibiotics in the early part of their life. So the correct balance of our microbiome is really crucial. If we have too many bad bacteria in the intestine, what it can do is it can create metabolites that send the wrong message out to the body. And so that essentially is a toxin to the system. And those metabolites that bad bacteria creates start to wear away at the wall of the intestinal wall. And so the toxins that we ingest on a day-to-day basis can pass across that gut wall. So then they're in our cardiovascular system, and then in our cardiovascular system, the liver either has to work twice as hard to detoxify them, or we send them for storage in the fat cells, and then they start to create their own ecosystem, which has a consequence to our long-term well-being. So having the right balance of bacteria in the intestine is really important, because the good bacteria will create the right metabolites that improves our immune system, that improves our hormone balance, that improves our energy levels, helps to create serotonin, so it improves our mood. And that serotonin is a precursor to melatonin, which will have an impact on the quality of our sleep. And also those good bacteria help to metabolize B vitamins, and B vitamins is a really important vitamin for energy production, but also for managing stress. So having the microbiome population, the bacteria in the intestine, working efficiently and having a good balance of 80% good bacteria, 20% bad bacteria, will have a huge consequence to how we live and the quality of our life on a day-to-day basis. As I say, whether that's just getting better sleep, whether that's getting better hormone balance, whether that's managing our weight more efficiently, or whether it's having more energy to do the things that we want to do, whether it's, you know, running a faster PB in a half marathon, or whatever it is that is your motivator to get to better health. So let's just unravel this in a bit more detail so that you can really start to understand how the microbiome has an impact on the rest of our well-being. This saying, fix the gut, fix the problem, is really where it's at. The microbiome is the foundation to our health. So I've already explained that when we take on board toxins, whether it's through the food that we're eating, whether it's through the skincare that we're using, or whether it is through drinking alcohol or too much coffee, those toxins basically are ingested across the gut wall. And if we've got more bad bacteria than good bacteria, like I said, the bad bacteria creates metabolites that wear away at the junctions of the cells on the lining of the gut wall and start to make holes. And so those toxins can pass across. Not only the toxins, the metabolites that the bad bacteria create can pass across, but equally as much. So the toxins that we ingest can pass across as well. And what happens is this creates inflammation. So our body's immune system is designed to create inflammation. A little bit of inflammation is really important. If you cut your finger, you have a little bit of red inflammation that forms around that cut because the immune system is trying to seal it up basically and prevent things passing across that breach in the barrier of your skin. And exactly the same thing happens around the gut wall. If you have something passing across the gut wall, the immune system will automatically set up a little bit of inflammation to prevent any more toxins passing across that hole that's been created. But if you've got an overload of bad bacteria that are wearing away at the junctions of the cells on the gut wall, so other places start to develop. So more inflammation is set up around the gut wall. And ultimately what ends up happening is you get something called systemic inflammation, which is basically an inflamed gut. You start to see IBS symptoms happening. You start to see joint health or joint pain starting to develop because that inflammation manifests in joint pain. And you start to see, most importantly, it's a stress on the system that I already spoken about. You start to see this disruption of the metabolism. So what happens is, because inflammation is a stress, it causes the body to go into a stress response, which results in a blood sugar imbalance. When we're stressed, which is a natural response, we release adrenaline. And when we release adrenaline, we also release cortisol. And cortisol is a hormone that basically keeps adrenaline under control. But at the same time as releasing adrenaline, we also flood the body with sugars from the glycogen stores, because traditionally, when we're stressed, we would have used that stress to run and catch something. It's the flight or fight response. But because when we're stressed, we now no longer run and catch something, it's a much more sedentary stress. Internal or external stress still has the same response. We still release sugars into the bloodstream. And so we start to have big blood sugar swings. We believe we're hungry when we're not, because the body wants glucose. We never feel full because those blood sugar swings result in insulin being released. And insulin basically takes the sugars out of the bloodstream, but it takes those sugars to the fat cells to be stored. Those fat cells start to create their own ecosystem, so they tell us we're never full. And we release more and more sugar. We need to eat more sugar to replenish the glycogen stores. And so we have this kind of ongoing swings of blood sugar and this ongoing cycle of sugar cravings, where we want to eat more sugary based food in order to try and lift our energy levels up. We might lean on caffeine, for example, in order to boost our energy levels. Caffeine disrupts our sleep. Caffeine puts an impact on the liver. Sugar's too high in the system. Blood sugar swings. Hormones go out of alignment because our insulin and cortisol levels are too high. They're both dominant hormones, and they will prevent the correct production of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So all sorts of consequences come from this inflammation around the gut wall, this wearing away of the gut lining of the gut wall, inflammation being set up, and it having a consequence as far as our hormone balance is concerned, our energy levels are concerned, our sleep patterns, you name it. It will have an impact if our gut wall is not rock solid and our gut microbiome is not as balanced as it should be. And so these blood sugar imbalances lead to things like insulin resistance. So pre-diabetic, basically a pre-diabetic state where the cells are saying, I don't want any more sugar. So the insulin receptors on the cells shut down, and consequently the body then says, well, what I'm going to do with all this sugar, I'm going to send it to the fat cells and I'm going to store it as fat. And so we have this continual cycle of inflammation leading to weight gain, and this weight gain then causing metabolic disruption because it has its own little ecosystem and sends its own messages out. Sleep doesn't get any better, sleep gets worse. Our liver is even more compromised because we find ourselves eating probably more processed food, more rubbishy food, because we're looking for sugar lifts to try and improve our energy levels. And it's just this downward spiral that we never seem to be able to break. And no matter what medication you take to try and break it, you'll find yourself still slipping back into the same patterns again. And it's about understanding how you can break that cycle and basically repair the gut wall and support the liver in order to be able to take back control of your health. So when the gut wall is not working properly, when the liver is not working properly, when the microbiome is out of balance, the consequences of this are, as I said, poor sleep, hormone imbalance, often headaches. Migraines are a common symptom of an under-functioning liver, but medication for migraines actually make the liver function even worse. This inflammation I talked about leading to joint pain. Autoimmune conditions start to develop because the more inflammation we create, the more the immune system goes into overdrive. And so we start to see things like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue beginning to develop. Skin health is poor, weight is poor, all the things that Trudy went through at the very beginning was basically linked back to the health of her microbiome. I apologize, I've gone on way too long. I should have finished about 10 minutes ago. But I'm very passionate about this, and I'm very passionate about sharing how you can take control of your health in a very, very simple way. So Trudy came to me looking for an improvement in her energy levels, an improvement in her skin. She wanted to sleep better. She wanted to feel more confident. She wanted to manage her hormones a little bit better, get rid of some brain fog, and find just better health on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to hand it back to Trudy now, because Trudy actually, I'll just take you back to that slide. So what we did was the Pure 21 program, which I'm going to explain in a little bit more detail in a minute. But basically, Pure 21 is an intestinal reset program that gets everything working again. It gets the microbiome back to where it should be working, the liver working efficiently, and the cardiovascular system working properly, and then the body properly nourished with 3 really simple meals a day. 3 proper meals a day with lots of nutrients in as well. So Trudy, I'm going to hand it back to you now, and Lovely, you can just go through where you are now.
Absolutely. I think you can just really see from the slide, and thanks for the great overview, Sue. I can't hear that information enough, and every time I hear it, it just astonishes me more and more. So, you know, really, I do have more energy now. I'm sleeping better and not longer. I've put here no more afternoon naps, but I actually did succumb to a little afternoon nap this afternoon. But what it's done for me is it's given me so much time back. I have a regular sleep pattern now. I go to bed at a regular time, and I wake up naturally in the morning before the alarm clock, and the first thing I think about is I'll take the dog for a walk versus I want to go back to sleep. And you know, I'm not feeling so unsettled in my digestive system, and those meds for acid reflux are history. I had actually cut them back before I came to Sue and started the program, but I did still feel the need for them maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and I haven't taken them now probably for 6 weeks, and just, as I say, just don't feel the need for them. Before I started the program, I'd weaned myself off of antidepressants, and I was quite concerned that you know, some of those unstable mood situations might come back, and they haven't. I'm a lot happier. My hair, my skin, my nails are in much better condition, and I can, you know, walk about now. I can walk 4, 5, 6, 7 miles and actually get out of bed the following morning, whereas in a previous life those weren't things that were happening. And my hormones are a lot more balanced as well. I'm not experiencing so many hot flushes. I was chatting to Sue the other day, and I'm like, am I imagining it, or are the hairs on my chin not quite as bad as they used to be? And it's true, they're not. I'm not a superhuman, and I'm continuing on this journey, but from where I was 6 weeks ago to now, then I feel really like a completely different person, and I know everyone that's in the room today has probably seen that. So thank you. I feel amazing, Sue.
And it is the power of resetting the health of the microbiome. Now, one thing I would say there is it doesn't stop after 21 days. You can reset the health of the microbiome, but it is a lifestyle change. This is just for you, isn't it, Trudy? This is the first step in making those lifestyle changes to be able to manage your health better longer term. So if I just if I just talk you through how the program works. So Pure 21 is a 21-day intestinal reset program. We call it Reset, Rebalance, Rebuild, and it is the reset part of that 3-step process of rebalancing and rebuilding. Then it's the first step in making changes to long-term health. It's a very easy to follow program. It's not complicated at all. I think you'll vouch for that, won't you, Trudy? It's not, you don't have to cook special dishes or anything like that. It's the guidelines are very, very simple. So it's all about eating 3 proper meals a day. We talk about eating a palm-sized piece of protein and as many colours on your plate as you can get. Those are the simple guidelines. But in order to be able to support someone through it, we do have a Facebook group with about 450 people in it now, a handbook that guides you through everything that you need to do. We've created a video playlist, so it takes you through every day, so you understand why you're doing something and the reason why you might be feeling a certain way. And I'm really passionate about helping people understand why they're doing it. It's not just about doing it, it's about understanding why, so that you can make those changes long term. Recipe book, full support and accountability, but it's a self-guided program as well, in that you've got everything you need to be able to implement it. But you still will get you will get support basically on a day-to-day basis as well as week-to-week basis. And then we have the Purify kit, which makes up part of the program, which is 5 clinically trialed products that have all been designed to reset and rebuild the health of the intestine. There is a cardiovascular support supplement that will help with the liver function. There is an intestinal BioMDT, is a specifically designed intestinal product with glutamine in it, which is really good for supporting the gut wall, with psyllium hulls in it, which help to clean the gut wall. There is a magnesium supplement. Magnesium is really important for day-to-day long-term health and blood sugar balance. A protein shake with lots of inulin in it, which is used as a snack. It's still about eating proper meals every single day. And then the Bioactives are pre and probiotics basically that feed and help the good bacteria to flourish. So this whole program is a 21-day clean eating program where you cut out the crap: caffeine, refined sugar, alcohol and processed food for those 21 days. It's a kickstart basically into a kind of new lease of life. It will help the microbiome to reset. It will help the liver to rebalance and detoxify efficiently, to get rid of a lot of those toxins that are in the system. And I think there was a question, I think Julie asked a question about, could it be liver function, not drunk alcohol or caffeine, I think it was, wasn't it, Julie, for years? Yeah, not caffeine for years and rarely drink but still struggle to sleep. And yes, it will be, because your liver will be struggling basically. It'll be a sluggish liver, and you're probably not producing enough melatonin. And if, you know, a conversation will probably find something in your past that has compromised the function of the microbiome and the balance of the microbiome. It is veggie friendly. It's completely vegan, apart from the proarginine, which has the vitamin D in it from sheep's wool. No animal has died, but it is from sheep's wool, so we can't say it's completely vegan. Oh yeah, Trudy already asked that. Yes, so antibiotics for teenage acne. There you go. That's where your problem has come from, Julie. So it's all about resetting and rebuilding the health. That all disease begins in the gut. It's about repairing the health of the gut, repairing the health of the microbiome, and getting everything back into balance again. It's a very simple program to follow, but in doing so, what you will do is you will clear those toxins out of your system that are rewriting a lot of your DNA, basically. You will allow the gut bacteria to rebalance, and in clearing those toxins out of the system, the body can then work more efficiently long term. Very, very simple to follow, as I said, completely guided. Everything you need to be able to achieve success is basically within the program. It really is simple to follow. So you wouldn't think twice about getting your car MOT'd and serviced at least once a year, if not twice a year. And often we don't think twice about spending money on a new phone, or we don't think twice about spending £3-4 a day on a coffee and something else to possibly lift us up to give us more energy. If you've been struggling for some time with those low-grade conditions that have been compromising your quality of life, now is the time to think about investing in yourself, because believe me, it won't get any better if you don't make those changes now. It will just continue on this very, very slight downward trajectory, and at some point it will fall off a cliff. and it's about taking your own responsibility. And now more than ever with COVID-19 as well, our microbiome is really important for our immune system. 80% of our immune system exists in the gut. And because there is no medication for this illness, we need to take responsibility for our own health. And if your body is giving you a sign externally that something internally is out of balance, it's your body's way of saying to you, I need you to do something about it. And when I talk about that wear versus repair balance, if you've got these low-grade conditions that are niggling you on a day-to-day basis, it is your body's way of talking to you, saying, please give me more nutrients, please help me repair. I can repair, and you can live a full quality life, but it just needs a little bit of help in order to be able to do that. So we call it an optimal health program. Resets, rebalances and rebuilds the microbiome so that you can rediscover yourself. You can find the person that you were before, which was what Trudy, I think, has probably refound herself.
Oh yeah.
If you cut out the crap for 21 days, caffeine, refined sugar, alcohol, processed food, as I say, is the first stage in a lifestyle change. If you're looking for the lifestyle change, if you want to make a difference to your health long term, it isn't just about doing it for 28 days and then reverting to old ways. It's about the first stage of resetting the intestine, but then there is a maintenance that you can follow food wise, 80-20 again. And some of the things that you might have done before, it's not to say you can't ever have a glass of wine again and you can't ever have a cup of coffee again if those are things that you enjoyed. It's about understanding how those things make you feel, basically. It's a completely supported program. At no point are you ever on your own. And so, as I said, it's very, very easy to follow, but it gets incredible results. There isn't a single person that's gone through this program who hasn't had the results that they're looking for, whether it is better sleep. I've had people that have had 20 years of poor sleep, and within their 21 days of return, have started to see 8 hours sleep a night. I've had people that have struggled with their hormone balance for years and years and not been able to get anything under control, with low mood and menopause symptoms, etc., and within that 21 days I've seen a lot of those symptoms come under control. It isn't the panacea, it isn't a magic wand, it requires you to put some effort into it, but it is an incredibly powerful program that has been clinically trialed, so it is, you know, proven to work, and it is all designed specifically to work together synergistically. All these nutrients work together synergistically to repair the health of the microbiome. So I'm going to shut up. If anyone's got any questions, please do unmute yourself and ask them, or put them in the chat box. But I believe, Trudy, you're sort of looking to find 4 scholarship clients, basically, aren't you? Because this is a program that you're going to begin to develop into your wellness business now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as well as sort of coming off a whole heap of meds and doing the Pure 21 program, I also gained a diploma in diet and nutritional advice over this whole period. So yes, as part of that wellness business, I'm looking for 4 people to go through the program. Sue and I will support you the whole way through at a reduced cost. And I know I've spoken to some of you individually about that. And, you know, if you feel it's the right time for you, then, you know, we can go ahead and have a further chat about that if you're not comfortable doing it here in this room. But right now, if you've got any questions, please let us know.
Yeah, I've just stopped the share, so if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, feel free to. But equally as much, you can have a separate conversation with Trudy, because none of you know me, so you might go, well, Julie does, but nobody else does. Actually, I don't want to ask her a question because she's too frightening, and I'd rather just ask Trudy.
You're not frightening at all, Sue. What sort of initial assessment of individuals do you do, you know, before taking them on, as it were, or before they embark on the program?
So there is a health assessment that is done at the beginning, so that's all part of the package, and it basically helps to identify where you are now and set some baseline measurements, and talk through the way you're eating and any other issues that might be occurring for you, and to, you know, to sort out medication, etc., and make sure there's no contraindications. So that's done with every person before they start the program, and it's done as a follow-up as well, so you can see how much progress you've made.
It was so interesting for me to do that. What Sue did was she took my questionnaire, didn't share the results with me either at that time or prior to the second going through of the questions. And of course I couldn't remember what my initial numbers were, and then when I saw where I was after doing the program, it just solidified really how brilliant. I can't evangelize enough. I'm at that stage where I'm just like, hallelujah, this is amazing. But yeah, it's really beneficial and really great to see the progress that you make afterwards.
And it's very easy to forget where you came from as well when you start, and often a lot of it as well is about, you know, how much it improves your mental well-being too. So you start to see things as being more manageable over those 21 days. You come to a place of kind of being able to see how much easier it would be to manage, or it is to manage all these things, because your health is starting to feel better. So you do, you know, at the beginning, the reason why I don't ever tell the person what their answers were when we do the follow-up is because it's so easy to forget where you came from. And I had one client recently who said, you know, we did a questionnaire at the beginning, and at the end she messaged me and said, I can't see that there's been any change, there's never no change, blah blah blah. And then we went back through the wellness questionnaire that we did with her, and she could see loads of change, but she'd forgotten how rubbish she felt at the beginning. So it's a really helpful tool to see how much progress you make.
Yeah.
Has anyone else got any other questions?
Yeah,
Annie.
Sorry, I'm mute, sorry. Is this all done online? How do you, or do you do it?
It's all done online. So when we do the wellbeing questionnaire, I will be doing it with Trudy and you know, so let's say you wanted to do it, Annie, and you. So it's a personal call that we would do between the three of us and go through that questionnaire initially. Then you get given the handbook, and it's got everything you need to succeed within that. But then we are going to create a WhatsApp group so that I can support Trudy and you on a day-to-day basis as well. And there's lots of accountability through that WhatsApp group as well, so that you can, you know, you've got that accountability, you've got that person there to ask any questions, should you have any questions you need answered on a day-to-day basis. And then there's a very busy Facebook community as well that everybody that's doing the program goes into, but you don't have to contribute to it. You can just watch, because a lot of the people will be having some of the same issues that you might be having, and you can get answers to it without actually commenting and stuff. But equally as much, we encourage everyone to post their food pictures in there, so it gives other people inspiration as to the kind of things that they can be creating as well. But there is a recipe book as well, and an eating plan that comes as part of the package. So you've got everything you need to basically be able to plan and make sure you get success from the program.
Is plenty of that vegetarian, sir?
Yes, and actual fact, we're just going through a reset of our recipe book at the minute, and we're going to divide it up into a vegetarian section and a meat section as well. So yes, there is a vegetarian eating plan and everything as well.
Thank you.
I know Rach and Dan couldn't stay on, but she did have a question about how suitable the program is if you're on prescription medication that you can't just stop, like omeprazole.
Yeah, so if or let's say it's thyroxine or something like that. So there's no contraindications with pretty much any medications, but what we do is suggest that if someone's using the program, when they take the supplements, they are taken 2 hours apart from any prescription medication. But there's pretty much no contraindications. But again, that comes up in the wellness questionnaire, and we can go through that and make sure that any medications they're on, it's not going to have any impact. But it's all food-based nutrients basically, so they're really, and the supplements are all food-based, so there is pretty much no contraindications at all.
Fabulous, thank you. Does anybody else have any more questions while we're here? I know we've gone
way over time.
Way over.
Sorry.
But, gosh, we're both
just passionate
about it. Pardon?
Did you say how much it costs?
No, I didn't. Initially, for the first 4 customers that I work with, or clients that I work with, it will be £199, and that includes all of the supplements, all of the supports, all of the groups, and all of the documentation and follow-ups that Sue just talked about.
And that will only be available for the first 4 people, won't it, Trudy? Because it's your kind of scholarship group that you want to go through it, for you to learn how to deliver the program and to get testimonials in return as well. And then after that, the price goes up, doesn't it?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
As your business develops.
Hurry.
Yeah. Well, shall we leave it there? And if anybody then wants to have a separate conversation with Trudy, the best thing to do is to get in touch with her separately, because I totally understand that now isn't the time for you to be making those decisions. You need to have a further conversation with Trudy. But if anybody did have any questions that you don't want to ask here and you ask Trudy, I'm more than happy to jump on a separate call with you if you wanted to talk anything through or what have you. Yeah, hopefully we'll see some of you soon in a WhatsApp group, and you're aiming to improve your health.
Fantastic. Thanks ever so much for joining this evening, everybody. Lovely to see you.
Thanks.
Do appreciate your time. Take care.
Take care. Thanks.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.
Bye.